What up, YouTube? Brian Keene here with you. Special guest tonight, my fiance, Mary SanGiovanni.
Hi, everyone.
As we always do, while folks, well, actually, no, your patron subscribers would not know what we always do.
They would not.
This is something I do for my patron subscribers, but since we're getting married, we thought we would marry sort of our patrons together, but not really. Just this one time, this one night. I don't want you involved in my patron every day. That would lead to chaos. I love you, but no. Yeah. For Mary's patron subscribers, I try to every week do an exclusive live stream for my patron supporters. Exclusive meaning they're the ones that get to ask the questions. They get to watch the live stream first. And then after about a week, after about 7 days, I make it available to the rest of the public. I thought, well, gee, wouldn't it be neat if I brought Mary in tonight? And she's looking for more content for her patron. I said, well, this can be your content for the day. So
I like this plan.
Might this be something you'll start doing for your patrons?
I think it will. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it will.
All right. Well,
they like it. Sure.
For Mary's patrons, what I always like to do is while people are coming in and logging in, I like to show off a couple cool things, from my office. Every week it's something different. This week it's something very cool. This is the limited edition. Ooh, the lighting is bad here tonight. Clickers Forever, a tribute to J.F. Gonzalez, edited by me. Okay, now this is the signed limited edition, which is cool enough in itself. But it came with these little mini figurines. That is a dark one. That is a cat. That is Mary's cat growling in the background. And that is a clicker. These are suitable for tabletop gaming. Let's say you're running a Dungeons and Dragons campaign and you want to throw clickers into it or dark ones into it. You could do that with these. However, the only way to get them at the time was with purchase of the limited edition of Clickers Forever. These were made by author Wiley Young. Excuse me, no. You know what? I'm wrong. These did not come with Clickers Forever. I completely fucked that up, Mary.
That's why I was telling your patron secretly that you have no clue.
Well, I've been up here working. It's now 8 o'clock at night. I've been up here working since 6 this morning, so I'm a little white. Forget that. It did not come with Clickers Forever. It came with the limited edition of Clickers Never Die.
Oh, yeah,
by Stephen Kozanowski and Wiley Young, which is also available right now in paperback and, of course, an ebook. So, yeah, these figures came with the limited edition of Clickers Never Die.
I think that's a fantastic idea.
They were made by Wiley Young.
Yeah.
Exclusively for that. He used a 3D printer. As I understand it, it was a huge pain in the ass. He made 100 of them or however many copies of the book were printed. But I think they should be available to the public. I think you should do a whole series. If you agree, I want you to go to briankeene.com. I want you to click the message board. I want you to scroll down to Wiley Young's forum, and I want you to leave a thread there demanding that he release the clickers to the public.
The clickers.
So that all of you dungeon masters out there can do, or hero clicks, they work with anything, really. They're very, very, very cool. Now, Mary, what cool thing did you bring to show people while I put these away?
Since it's horror show and tell, I brought this beautiful hardcover of a novel of mine called The Blue People. Now, you may be wondering, selves, you may be saying, what is The Blue People? I've never heard of that. She doesn't ever promote that book. I don't know anything about it. The Blue People is the original title of my novel, Chills. When it came out originally in hardcover, it came out from Thunderstorm Books, and it came out under the title The Blue People, which is, these guys. And if you've read the novel, then they should be familiar to you. This is, I believe, Vincent Chong's artwork, and he nails it every time he does monsters for me. He just
Vinny Chong is
he's
and
fantastic.
No offense to anybody I've worked with, because you're all great, but Vinny Chong is just
he's great.
He's a whole level.
He is.
He's like the Vinnie Chong level.
He really, and
Yeah.
every time he does a cover for me for something, he always wants an excerpt that describes the monsters, and whatever he comes back with, it's like he can see inside my head. It's really awesome. He always does an amazing job doing covers. In fact, he's doing the cover for the sequel to Thrall, which is coming out from Thunderstorm Books. And it's fantastic. I'm just so excited. But anyway, this book, The Blue People, was a limited edition hardcover from Thunderstorm. And this is Chills. This is actually the same novel. It's just under the original title. When I published it with Kensington, they didn't like the Blue People. They didn't like that as a title. They thought it wasn't thrillery enough, I guess. So they changed it to Chills, which I'm fine with, but I just thought that was kind of interesting that there is a version of this novel out there with a completely different title.
Pretty cool.
Pretty cool.
Kind of like Earthworm Gods versus the Conqueror Worms.
Yes, or
the Rutting Season versus
Dark Hollow. Exactly.
All right, well, let's get to the questions. Should we do your patron page first or mine first? Let's go to yours.
Okay, let's go to mine.
All right, on Mary's patron. Joanne asks, hello, Joanne, first of all. She says, hi, Mary.
Hi.
I'm going to have to lean close to the screen. Is the dolmen in the Giant's Table inspired by Pyramid Rock in Kinnelon, New Jersey? Did I pronounce that right?
Kinnelon.
Kinnelon, New Jersey. It's the first thing that came to my mind when I read the story. Thanks.
That's pretty cool because it actually is partially inspired by Pyramid Rock. I've only ever been to Pyramid Rock once. It was a hiking trip that I brought my father and my sister and my daughter on, and none of us are hikers really, but I was laboring under the delusion that Pyramid Rock itself was only maybe 1.5 miles in, possibly 3 miles at the most. It turns out it was about 7 miles in, so it was a major hike, but it's a very cool place. Pyramid Rock in Kinnelon is in a state park, and the rock itself is probably the size of a bus, probably the size of maybe 2 buses stacked on top of each other, and it's balanced on tiny little rocks. And it hasn't moved since the time of the Ice Age, when the ice swept through and deposited this giant rock on top of these little rocks. And people always take pictures underneath the little rocks there because you can squeeze a person under there. I didn't, because I thought, oh God, this thing decides,
you'd be the one person.
However many thousands of years later to fall, it'll fall on me. But the inspiration came, the story, The Giant's Table, if folks haven't read it, is a story about, I've always been fascinated with dolmens, which are almost like Stonehenge, except they have tops. If they don't have tops, then they're just monoliths, I guess. But if they have a top, it's called a dolmen. And those and cairn stones and things like that, I think there's a certain ancient magic kind of vibe there. And that's what I was going with The Giant's Table, except, of course, in that short story, that ancient magic is not good. And people who stumble on it when the thing on top of it happens to open up every so many years, bad things happen to them. But yes, to answer your question, Joanne, in a long and roundabout way, that Pyramid Rock was definitely one of the influences for The Giant's Table, for that that kind of impressive, massive rock formation that has a little bit of, ancient magic to it.
Cool. All right, let's go over here. And we just announced this morning, so there's not a lot of questions. So you guys are welcome to get your questions in the chat whenever you want. Austin says, greetings, Mary and Brian. I've nearly finished reading Love Letters from a Nihilist and unexpectedly got emotional reading your heartfelt introduction, Mary.
Aww.
I like to think relationships between writers can be a touch easier since there is an understanding of the craft between both partners. It is truly so beautiful to see the cliffs-edged roller skating has brought you both to this new chapter. Not really a question, but Austin brings up a great thing to talk about. So you wrote the introduction to Love Letters from a Nihilist.
Mhm.
And I am a bit of a nihilist, or as I like to say, I'm a hopeful nihilist.
You are. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. You've known me, what, close to 20 years?
Close to 20 years.
Obviously, we weren't, together that whole time, but you've known me. We've been friends close to 20 years. But you and I both know that when you're reading an author, particularly a great deal of their work at once, you gain a deeper understanding of who that person is. Now,
yes,
we are not conflating fictional actions by a character with the real life author who wrote it. If you want to argue that nonsense, go to Twitter or Facebook with all the other morons. Okay. What we're talking about is, as creators, as artists, we have a tendency to be able to see, the truth behind the fictional things, like what inspired the writer to talk about this. A great example, Tom Piccirilli. His father died when Tom was very young. In a lot of Tom's books, there are father and son dynamics that speak to that. Now you as a general reader would not know that, but a writer, even one who did not know Tom the way we did, would probably be able to pick up on that. So, in writing your introduction for Love Letters from a Nihilist, the complete short fiction of Brian Keene, Volume 3, did you learn anything new about this man who you are now engaged to? And if so, wow, you were still willing to say yes?
Well, here's the thing. See, when I met you, you didn't come across to me as a nihilist. You came across to me, I wouldn't say as an optimist, but if you read enough of Brian's work, what you come to see is that there's most definitely a nihilistic overarching idea in all of his work that inevitably there are forces out there, which is why I'm surprised you don't come up more in cosmic horror conversations. That there's this force, whatever it is, whatever the antagonistic force is absolutely destructive, and there probably isn't going to be any way to come out of it alive. And yet, the quality of the characters, every main protagonist tries anyway. There is a hope there that is unflinching, even when all of the odds are stacked against them, even when it's clear that this is not going to be okay, because the main character is almost never, I can't really think of an example where it is the character himself, almost never doing it for himself. It's always for the woman he loves, or for a child, or for a friend. And I think that with a lot of modern cosmic horror, you get that kind of that structure, that idea that you may be facing these insurmountable odds, and your one story, your one life is insignificant. In fact, because all of humanity is insignificant, which is a nihilistic sort of point of view. But what I like about you and what I like about your work is that hope that you can make it better for someone else, even if you don't believe you matter, is sort of endearing. Well, I think what I learned about you is that you are a nihilist.
Yeah.
Because the you, that the public you is fearless, and the public you is hopeful, and no matter who's worried about something going on, or so I have this problem, I'm worried about this collapsing, I'm worried about this person, you've always swept in and said, it's okay, I got a plan. I'll take care of it.
We'll create a message board.
Don't worry, everything will be okay. We've been through this before. We'll go through it again, and in the meantime, I will get you through. And I think it was more of a surprise to find out that deep down, here's the thing of it. You're layers. You're like an onion.
I can sum it up. I'm a nihilist. Ultimately, we are all fucked, but I am going to go down swinging.
Exactly.
I
but
will not go quietly.
Underneath that, I think there's some part of you, again, that goes back to the top layer that says, no, maybe everything will be okay.
Well, yeah, there's always a 1% chance.
Exactly.
In everything.
And that I learned about you.
And I have
over time, that there are layers, that there's the hopeful, everything that's okay, Brian, then the nihilist Brian, which seems to take up a big chunk of you. And then underneath here, the little hopeful Brian again. And it's the little hopeful down here that makes me love you.
Well, as you were saying that, it made me flash back. And I'll share something publicly that we never have shared before. So when I caught on fire, and you can speak to this because you were there in the ER.
Yes.
They're trying to get me stabilized. They don't know if they can get me stabilized. And what do? I fight them and argue with them until they let me make one phone call.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that phone call is to Joe Ripple. I'm in.
Actually, you made two, I think.
Ripple and Kazanowski.
Yeah.
I'm in shock. I'm in agony. They're like, Mr. Keene, if we don't get you stabilized, we're going to take you down. We have to take you down to the morgue. No, you have to wait. I made two calls to Ripple and Kazanowski. Hey, make sure you get my kids taken care of. Here's what you need to do.
Yeah.
Okay. I've had my swing. Now let's roll that dice and see if I hit the 1%. Well, I would say, I guess it was 50%.
But see, no, here's the thing. Then for a while, it's very nihilistic. And something else we haven't shared is that it did take a nihilistic toll on Brian for a long time.
I don't think so.
Oh, it did. But that little hopeful bit was there. And the way I could tell was when they had to do, I forget what the process is called, but they basically scrape off the burnt skin and all that kind of stuff to make sure that there's no infection and things like that. It's a very...
I called it the cheese grater, but I'm not sure that was the proper medical term.
There's a word for it, but I can't remember off the top of my head what it is. It seems like a very barbaric process.
Whittling, I believe.
No.
The one doctor said.
It seems like a very barbaric process, but it's medically necessary. And I gave him my hand, and Brian's a tough guy. I gave him my hand and I said, just squeeze my hand when it hurts. And I mean, he was so stoic. I mean, he's practically like in another zone. He was so stoic. And then at the very end, he squeezed my hand, and he almost broke my hand, but he did. He squeezed my hand. And I thought, like, that's somebody who's finally trusting me enough to let me shoulder some of this for him. And I don't know, it was kind of a special moment. And you probably don't even remember it, but it was special to me.
I remember. I mean, I was in shock, but I remember. All right, let's go to the next question. Jim Cobb, who also has his own section on the message board. What's up, Jim? Regarding the forthcoming nuptials, will you and Mary be registered at the York Emporium? No, we will not. For those who are not from Central Pennsylvania, the York Emporium is one of the largest used bookstores on the East Coast. It's an old tire factory that got converted into a used bookstore decades ago by our dear friend Jim Lewin. Mary and I have shopped and signed there for years. J.F. Gonzalez used to, Robert Ford, Chet Williamson, all kinds of people. When people would come through on tour, Daryl Schweitzer has signed there multiple times. F. Paul Wilson.
In fact, Jesus rested in peace there for a time.
Yeah, J.F. Gonzalez rested in peace there. Now he's temporarily resting in peace here in my office. Let me flip back to the camera to make sure he's showing up. Say hi to everybody, Jesus. There he is. Temporarily. If you want to know why he's here temporarily, go to briankeene.com and click blog, and it explains why he is here, but only temporarily here. Anyway, no, we will not register at the York Emporium. Last time I talked to Jim was in August, I believe. And he was looking to retire. I guess this is public. If not, Jim, I'm really sorry. He was looking to retire, sell the store, sell the stock. He thought he had a buyer, and he thought October he would be done. With the departure of Jim, I don't know. It feels like a good time to let that go. A lot of good memories wrapped up in the York Emporium, but several friends of mine personally who were either employed there or sold books there are now gone. And Jesus is gone. And it seems time to let that go. The other reason is, as I want to put in the wedding invitations, and Mary says I'm not allowed to do this, we don't need anything. Okay? I'm 55. You're
not
55. You're about to turn 25.
Yes.
You didn't notice that on camera, did you?
What? What did you do?
Nothing. I was letting the audience know that I love you. This is a heart, by the way. We don't need anything. We don't need a toaster. We don't need a crock pot. We could always use money.
We could use a toaster. But we don't need a crock pot. We have enough. We have stuff. So we have our stuff. I
want to put in the invitations. We don't need anything. We would just like to see our friends. So just bring yourselves. But if you want to give us money, that'd be awesome too. She says that I can't do that. But no, we don't need anything. So we're not going to register anywhere.
If it was up to you, you'd just like email out, hey, we're getting married here. You can come if you want to.
Show up here. Here's where the reception's going to be. I know that motherfuckers are going to try to crash it, so we're just going to make it covered dish. Bring something.
We're not putting motherfuckers in our invitations.
Can we make it covered dish?
Yeah, I don't care.
I mean, people are going to crash it.
I know.
Mary, for God's sake, we weren't engaged a day. And Christopher Golden and Rio Yours had already invited themselves to the wedding. Now, I should clarify.
They were on the list anyway.
Yes, yeah. Christopher and Rio, absolutely both on the list. But just in case they weren't, Rio read, hello, mate, congratulations. Have you set a date yet? And then, and then Chris texts, hey, the wife and I are looking at air travel. What's the date and what's the closest airport?
Yay!
And I think I did bust Golden. How do you know you're invited?
Of course he's invited.
But so yeah, we're not registering anywhere.
Yeah.
Our next question is.
I mean, honestly, can I just throw this in there? If you do want to do something for us for our wedding, just maybe buy our books.
Yeah,
you can always use royalty checks.
Buy a book. Buying a book is great. Or I guess we can start to hint about this for our honeymoon. Well, first we wanted to go to Easter Island, but if you don't know about this, Easter Island caught on fire. Some assholes.
Yes, I heard about that.
Had an illegal campfire and managed to damage most of the statues. Those statues have stood, well, not for eons, but obviously for centuries. And now they're like blackened and cracked, and it's very fucked up. So then we were going to go to Alaska. And then somehow we decided, well, instead of just going to Alaska, why don't we go everywhere here in the continental U.S.? Why don't we do a honeymoon book signing tour? So we're going to be doing that. I know just about every state on the East Coast, every state on the West Coast, and a lot of states in between, like Chicago. Haven't been to Chicago in years. Chicago, coming back to you next year. So yeah,
we had fun in Chicago the last time we were there.
That was a long time ago. So yeah, we're going to do that. So we will do that. All right. So the next question is, this is for both of you. If you were to create your own League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, not using any of your own characters, who might that roster consist of? Now, hold on. Let me clarify. Do you know what the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen is?
My understanding of it is that it was a comic book.
It was a comic book.
Became a movie that is about, I think, like people who are in Secret Service to the Queen, but they have superpowers.
No, close.
Okay.
It's Alan Moore.
Okay.
So right away, you know it's good.
Okay.
It was fictional characters like the Invisible Man, Dr. Jekyll.
Oh, literary characters.
Yeah, fictional literary characters who form their own group in service to the Queen.
Okay.
I mean, I guess technically they have superpowers in that Dr. Jekyll can transform into Hyde, and the Invisible Man is invisible. And Mina Harker from Dracula, she's in it, etc. So I will let you think about that.
Yeah.
My League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, and this is by no means a full roster, but it's going to include Repairman Jack, F. Paul Wilson's Repairman Jack. It's going to include Joe Lansdale's Happen Leonard. It's going to include Brian Lumley's Titus Crow. Let me think about this a little more. they're going to need someone to do the wet work. Someone even more willing to do wet work than Repairman Jack, because Repairman Jack has morals. So I'm going to pick Dickie and Balls from Edward Lee's mythos, particularly the Big Head, and they'll keep them caged until it's time to send them and do the things that only Dickie and Balls can do.
This is tough.
All right. Well, I mean, I can keep thinking if you still need more time to think.
Yeah.
I'm going to get Glenn Bateman from Stephen King's The Stand. Glenn is going to be sort of, their wise men, their man in the chair, the microchip to their Punisher, so to speak.
Does it have to be modern people? Like, could it be like, can we put Gandalf in there?
Yeah, you can pick whatever you want. I went back to, do you remember Arena? Do you remember when Chris Golden and Jim Moore and I tried to sell Arena? Do you remember that?
No.
Arena was an idea we got in a bar at a horror convention. We're going to do this shared world anthology where we took all these literary horror characters, okay, in this big mashup. We were going to use, all the characters I just mentioned and all these other characters, Sonia Blue and just everybody, okay? And we would use locations too, like Peter Straub's Millhaven and Charlie Grant. What's Charlie Grant's?
Greystone Bay.
Yeah, Greystone Bay, and we were going to use my own Labyrinth mythos as the mechanism to get them around, and we were going to anchor it with the Dark Tower. And the first thing was, can we get permission from everybody? And it turned out, yes, we could, because everybody thought this was the greatest idea ever. They wanted a story where Repairman Jack meets Happen Leonard and something, maybe they fight the Big Head. But every publisher we talked to,
it's a lot of rights.
There's just no way to juggle all those rights. Yeah. So never got off the ground. But yeah, anytime somebody asks that question, I immediately go back to Arena.
It's a fun idea. I mean, I like that.
The cats are having their own live stream back there.
We could put the gunslinger in the roster.
Roland, yeah, I put Roland in. All right, so who's your League of Extraordinary Gentlemen or Gentlewomen?
Conan the Barbarian.
Okay, so you got Roland, and Conan, and Gandalf.
Yeah, and Roland, Conan. One more time. Roland, Conan, Gandalf. Nyarlathotep.
Nyarlathotep?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think he will play well with those others?
I'm not sure any of them will play well with each other at all. That's all I could to be honest, that's all I can think of. That would be tough, because I guess it would depend on who they're working for and what they were supposed to be doing, maybe. Okay. But that's why not.
All right. Last question. So if you all have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. How do you set up your time for all your work? It seems like you always have something going: the patron post, your book, Sunday newsletter, and now publishing and wedding planning. Well, I let her do the wedding planning, so that's easy. No, yes. No, that's not true.
You're letting me. Here's the thing. Brian has commandeered a lot of the big picture things as far as the wedding goes, like
venue,
the DJ, licenses, the
DJ mix. Because I'm going to DJ.
I think you're looking into the catering, right? Things like that.
Right, which is why I want to go covered dish. And you didn't veto that. So.
No, I don't care.
My uncle can bring his deer jerky.
It's actually pretty good. I didn't think I would like it, but it's pretty good. And then I'm taking care of little things like the decorations. I have a whole list, but putting together the guest list, the invitations, save the dates, all that kind of stuff. So if I can answer for Brian's incredibly, he's got an amazing work ethic. And so he basically gets up before the sun's up and he works until lunchtime. And then he has some lunch, takes a little nap, goes back and works until dinner time. And sometimes he works after dinner. And I think you just rotate, right?
Well, yeah, I get up at 5. I drive over to my ex-wife's and I make breakfast for my son every morning and I pack his lunch for school. After he's off to school, my ex-wife and I walk 2 miles, get my exercise in. I come home, I'm here at the desk by 8:30, and by 8:30 I start writing. I work until 12:30, and then I walk another mile in the woods. I come back, I nap from 1 to 2, and then from 2 until 5 I work again. And then yes, some evenings if I need to work more, I'll work more. But usually it's 8:30 to 12:30, and then 2 to 5. This is my full-time job. It's no different than if I was punching a time clock at a factory. That's just the way I view it. As far as what I'm going to work on, you can't see it, but there's not only one, there's 2 whiteboards on a calendar.
Yeah.
Right. Well, actually, no, right. No.
No.
Yeah, right there.
That way.
And I have things blocked out, like up there right now on the whiteboard. One block says Island of the Dead, Leader of the Band, Invisible Monsters. That block is things that I'm currently editing. They're already written. I'm just editing them. The next box says Gwendy's Button Box, Splintered the Labyrinth Book 3, Beneath the Lost Level, Monsters of Saipan. Those are novels that are currently being written. Or in the case of Gwendy, it's a graphic novel adaptation of a novel. Then below that is a block for short stories. I owe Stephen Kozanowski a short story for his Perfectly Fine Neighborhood anthology. And a woman bought a story for a Roe versus Wade fundraiser that Hillary Monahan had organized. And I'm currently working on a story for her for that. And some of it is determined by what mood I'm in that day, what I'm in the mood to work on. And some of it is determined by deadline. Next week, it's going to be very, very heavy on Gwendy because, there's some things moving there, and I have to get that finished before this year ends. And I'm almost finished. I've talked about this elsewhere. I've had more trouble writing this thing than anything in my career, and that's because I am constantly second and third guessing myself because it involves Castle Rock and I want to get everything just right. I'm a King fan.
And he's a nihilist.
What?
What?
I don't think they heard you.
Oh, he's a nihilist. So he does.
Well, I'm a nihilist except for Castle Rock. I'm not going. I'll go into my own.
Your personality. So you're already expecting, like, before you get to finish this, like the Great Space Rock will crash into your office.
Well, yeah, chances are I'll die before I get this finished. But no, I'm going to get it finished before the end of the year. So next week I know that is going to dominate my week. The week after, Mary and I are traveling for 3 days, so I'll probably just take along the laptop and work on those edits that I mentioned. But that's how, I juggle it. How about you?
Well, I haven't been doing this full time as long, and I'm still not completely full time because I teach on the side. So what I've been trying to do with varying degrees of success, I used to get up about 9:30, 10 o'clock. Lately, I've been getting up about 8:30, 9 o'clock. And then I have breakfast.
What we call lunch on my schedule.
Yes. I try to do a little bit of like online stuff. Like I got to answer emails or respond to things on social media, message boards, whatever. And sometimes I do a little bit of writing in the morning till about 12 o'clock. From 12:30, I work out, take a shower, have lunch, take a little nap. And then I'm a night person. So I can either, depending on when I get my nap, I can either work until dinner or I just wait till after dinner. Brian and I spend a little time together, catch up on things and watch a little TV on, when we're having dinner. And then I'll work sometimes after he goes to bed. And that can be, it's to like 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, sometimes 12, 1 o'clock, depending on, what's gone on during that day. So I've been trying to balance those things because I think it's important to, obviously to get the writing done, but also to get the exercising done and to get, and sometimes I do housework in the morning. I'll do, washing the dishes, cleaning the litter boxes, folding the laundry, usually that before noon. I try to get that stuff done before noon. But again, like I said, there's a little bit of juggling, depending on what's going on. But that's generally how I get it done. And I'm one of those people where I have to write the things down on a calendar. Like if we have upcoming events, I have to put it on the calendar to make sure I don't forget. I have to set reminders in my phone. So I do have lists. I don't have a whiteboard, but I do have a calendar in my office that has when things are due, like if a novel's due, short stories are due, when it's due. And sometimes if I need time leading up to that, so I have extensive notes on Post-it notes and the calendar and whatnot about what I have to do and when it has to be done by.
Okay.
So there's that. Yeah.
All right. Well, we are out of questions. So if you guys have questions, pop them in the chat. If you are not a patron subscriber, if you are one of the folks on YouTube who are watching this after it is aired and you're thinking, boy, I wish I'd been in that live stream. I would have asked this or that. Well, you can. And the way to do that is to subscribe to us on Patreon. We do ours a little differently. Mine is just a $5 flat fee every month. And for that, you get content every day, including these live streams. Mary, yours is structured at different levels, right?
A little bit. I have a tip jar if you just find me charming and adorable and just want to give me $1 every month so that we can keep feeding our kitty cats. Or for $5 a month, I try to put up weekly content where it's a short story, an excerpt from something that I'm working on. Sometimes it's like little behind the scenes type stuff and that kind of thing.
Okay. Efren asks, question for Mary, how is the sequel for Thrall going?
Well, it's funny. I love being back in that world. One of my, I never know how much of this is actually spoilers if people haven't read Thrall. I'm assuming though, for people who have read Thrall, that you're aware that some of the characters survive. So one of the survivors is the main protagonist in, it's tentatively titled Null because that's the name of this new town, and he works as a cult deprogrammer. And what I found interesting, I was telling Brian this, is that I'm getting to explore what happens to a person who has clearly been traumatized over time, but doesn't recognize it as trauma, not in himself. He recognizes it in other people, but not in himself. And it's been sort of fun to revisit this character. In Thrall, he was, I think, in his early 20s, and now he's a man in his 40s. And it's been sort of fun to see where that goes. And he has new friends and a job, and I've also had fun writing the scenes with new monsters, because here's the thing, Thrall, and again, this is a spoiler, I apologize, you can fast forward through this part if you haven't read Thrall yet. Thrall is an entity that is just so big and so alien looking that it appears like a town. Like that's kind of how it's shaped itself in this world, in order to, like a Venus flytrap, in order to kind of bring in people and feed on them. And it's not the only one. There are a handful, very few of them, but there are a handful of them. And this Null is another one. So I've been able to include some of the same creatures because it's got the same basic biology. But I've also been able to include new creatures like that in Thrall. I said were extinct by then in Thrall, but they're not in this new town. So you get to see creatures that I've only made reference to in Thrall, but are actually living beings, living entities in this new town. It's been fun. It's a little bit tricky, any kind of sequel is a little tricky because you have to, you have the basic framework, which makes it a little easier, but you have to almost kind of one-up it, and do something better without making it look like you're one-upping it, and that's been the challenge of it. But I'm enjoying it so far. And I think if folks like Thrall, I think they're going to like this one.
Sorry, I was doing Toe Puppet Theater down here.
Yeah, I don't know what you're doing over
Well,
there. You're
I
like
was-
clicking remotes and.
Well, I was adjusting the time
Uh-huh.
on the sound system because I noticed that it wasn't correct. And then my foot hurt, so I was rubbing my feet. And as you were finishing up there, about the time you said that, Thrall is a giant Venus flytrap, I realized, oh, they can see my toes on camera.
This is what I'm marrying into.
That's what goes on in my head. All right. Anne says, have either of you read stories that appeared in the short-lived pulp magazines Terror Tales and Horror Stories? They had a reputation for supernatural tales about torture and sex. I've read a few. How about you?
I think I've read horror stories.
Yeah. I mean,
it's hard to point out because
the time, they were pretty racy. I don't know that today, you stack them up against Chandler Morrison or Christopher Triana, Daniel Volpe. I don't know that they would make their readers flinch. But yeah, for the time, they were pretty racy. J.F. Gonzalez has a pretty full run of those in his archives. Of course, the family has them in their archives. Yep.
I've read Hugh Cave, Hugh Cave.
Yep.
And Carl Jacobi.
Yep. Leo Zagat. We have some of them in there in our library. I have to keep reminding Mary that
we have a library.
That right over here, beyond this door, of course, her office is at the end of the hallway, but between the two of them is a massive library that she always forgets that we have.
But in my defense, okay, we have a lot of first editions. We have a lot of, beautiful limited edition hardcover
that should be read.
I'm afraid to touch them. It's almost like a museum. Like I'm afraid that I'm going to get my fingerprints on them, or I'm going to drop them, and Keene's going to give me like an angrier version of that look right there. I don't know. I mean, I should be. We have an incredible library, and I should be reading it more, but I find it a little intimidating.
But it's a haunted library. I have been going through a thing. Mary makes fun of me because I don't like watching new television and new movies. I do so under protest.
He does.
I just want to watch things that I already know I enjoy. I want to revisit them. Like last month, I went on a revisiting all of John Cusack's romantic comedies kick. So Better Off Dead, One Crazy Summer, stuff like that. But I've gotten to the point now where I just don't want to watch fucking television at all. I want to sit and I want to read. And it's very hard to spend time together if she's watching something and I've got my nose buried in a book. So I've been trying to find other time to read.
You could read if you want to.
But, I go in our library and I'm like, holy shit, what a great library we've amassed. So, I've been spending a lot more time in there than she has.
Well, yeah, and most of my reading, I used to do reading while I was working out, but now I listen to Brian Keene radio.
Nice plug.
Thank you. I try. I used to listen to audiobooks. My parents live 3 hours away, so I used to listen to a lot of audiobooks going up to New Jersey and back again, or I read in the tub. And my reading has taken kind of a dive there, because unless I'm getting it on audiobooks, I can't read those beautiful limited edition hardcovers and first editions in the tub, because I think Brian would have a coronary.
I do.
Do you?
Yeah.
I always feel like you're going to get mad if I do.
No, there's pictures of me in the bubble bath with an Arkham house, and then people on Twitter get mad. on my OnlyFans. No, people on Twitter get mad and yell at me, and again, that's why I've left social media and started a message board. BrianKeene.com. Click message board.
Well, to me, that's kind of the main reason, is that the places I would read and the methods that I would read, given that's when I have time to read, would be not conducive to protecting the integrity of rare books. But if you're okay with me reading in the tub,
I think you should get, in honor of Anne, you should get one of those old issues of Terror Tales that we have in there.
Okay.
And sit with it in the tub.
Okay.
And then when you inevitably drop it into the tub, I'll have a great blog entry. And Anne, thank you for that. I love you.
I love you too.
All right. Well, that looks like that's it for the questions. So thank you all for hanging out with us. We appreciate it. As I said, if you are watching this a week from now and you're like, well, why didn't somebody ask about this? Join the Patreon and you can ask. Join for 1 month, ask your question, and then unsubscribe. I don't care. I got your money by then. Oh, wait.
Please, if you have any last questions before we go.
The message board was out of the box thinking. Actually, if you go on the message board right now and scroll down to the Thunderstorm Books section, Paul Goebbels is right. He says in there, that about 3 years ago, I said to him, I thought this is where social media was going. And he's right. 3 years ago, I started planning this. But as I respond in the thread, I did not think it would happen this quick. Our friends outside of the public sphere, our peers, they'll vouch. I've been saying for the last 2 years, social media is going to die off. We need to start making plans. And they all think I'm a crazy person until, suddenly Facebook is looking at bankruptcy and, the mess with Twitter. And, people are trying to go to Mastodon and figuring out it's terrible. And then that's why it's never grown.
I can't figure it out at all.
People of a certain age can't figure out TikTok. Hell, I admit I can't figure out fucking TikTok.
I can't even figure out Instagram. I can't figure out how to get it to post the pictures I want it to.
So I knew this was coming. It happened a lot quicker than I thought, though. I thought we probably had 3 or 4 more years before social media started to die off. But instead, we have what it is now. And if you don't believe it's dying off, you're not old enough to remember LiveJournal or Zanga or MySpace or GeoCities. And if you are old enough to remember those things and you still don't think social media is dying off, you're wrong. It's that simple.
I think what worries people is that in this business, we have to build a following and build a readership. And it's splintered, spread out in so many different places. But I think that this is a good opportunity to consolidate that readership and have them all in one place where you can reach them all at the same time, which is why I started a newsletter in case folks are interested. If you go to MarySanGiovanni.com and click on newsletter, it takes you to the subscription thing. Because Brian's right. I mean, it's going to be harder and harder and harder to have one central place where we can all kind of gather. What dandelion is this? When
that's gonna be a reference to Matt Willison, right? Who texted me?
Oh, on the message board. Okay.
Let me tell this story. Okay, so they're recording. Dandelion is a nickname for author and podcaster Matt Willison. So they, being Matt and Mary and Summer Cannon, are recording an episode of their podcast before the message board is launched. Okay, and I'm talking about the message board on their podcast. And I come back here in my office. They're still at the other end of the hall recording, and Matt is texting me while they're recording, asking, "Can I have my own section on the forum?"
And the funny thing is if you watch, you can't see our podcast because it's audio only, but in the recording of the file, you could see it. Like Summer and I are talking about this movie, and Matt just checks out. He's just like texting on his phone, and we're like, dude.
And I didn't answer him fast enough because 500 other people were texting me with the same question. So then Matt emailed me, and then direct messaged me, and then texted me again, and then sent me a private message on the forum. And as I told Matt, there's a long list.
I was going to say there's a fairly extensive.
There's a long
wait list.
Long wait list. I would love to give everybody a forum. It doesn't work that way. The infrastructure will not allow that. And I'm not going to allow it because if you have a forum that people have to scroll through for 12 hours to find the section they're looking for, nobody's going to use it. Okay, this has been offered as an alternative for those of us who are sick of social media. I'm not going to turn it into social media. As I've told Matt and everybody else that's on the waiting list, you're welcome to go to the books and comics section and start a thread for yourself. Armand Rosamilia has a very robust one there now. Josh Roundtree has one there. Do that, or get one of your readers to do it.
I was gonna say,
Efren, you do it. You go to the books and comics section, start a dandelion thread.
I was gonna say, there's.
If I sound angry, I'm not. It's just I'm getting this question 500 times a day, and not just from that. I'm getting it from everyone, and I've put it there in writing in the rules section, but people don't seem to read that. So I don't know.
I think actually there are a number of writers, because we've been trained to do this with social media, that think that engagement equals importance, and if there isn't a board there, they kind of feel bad because they think that nobody's reading them. But here's the thing. If you're a reader, I think one of the nicest things you can do on this message board, if somebody doesn't, or even if somebody does, have a board, is to engage with them. Because there's nothing sadder than having a board and having nobody talking on it. And if somebody that you like, a reader that you like, is not there, if you did I was thinking of doing a summer canon appreciation thread, and just getting people talking about her, so that she knows that there are people out there that are reading her books and enjoying her work, and there's a few people actually.
May I?
Please do.
You guys, meaning users of the forum, cannot see who all is registered for an account. I'm here to tell you, everybody's on that message board, whether they have a section or not. And there are some big name authors under there, some of them under their own names, some of them under pseudonyms, who do not have their own section, who are on there reading because they miss these days. They're enjoying just reading the conversations and being a fly on the wall. If you have an author who you like, go to the books and comics section. It's one of the very first things you see. You don't even have to scroll, and start a thread about their books. Chances are they'll probably see it. There are some authors who I initially offered sections to who are like, you know what? I don't want a section. I just want to be a fly on the wall and lurk. Okay. You can do that. But conversely, like Mary said, there are authors there who do have sections. If you are a fan of Haley Piper, go to Haley's section and tell her, hey, I enjoy your work. I really like this book. If you are old like me and you love David J. Scow's stuff, or Ronald Kelly, or who are the other old timers I gave boards to? Ron, David.
I would never deign to call his own self an old timer, but
I actually changed that to Lansdale Country.
I like the Lansdale Country.
Section.
I think that's a nice idea.
And there are a few other authors of that era, of that level, who I have to set boards up for, who are still trying to figure out how to log in.
Oh, God. But I get it, though. I went through the same problem that they're having.
Maybe you're a young reader and you haven't read them, but they had an impact on me. They had an impact on Mary. Just go there and read the threads and see what they're talking about.
One of the nice things about message boards that you don't get in social media, that we loved when message boards were a thing, was that because of the way it's structured, if you did, let's say you were a huge Ronald Kelly fan, right? And he has a big following on social media. He may not see your tweet to him, and he may not answer you. On a message board, he'll see it. And the nature of message boards is discussion. So
Lee, another old timer.
Ed Lee, yeah. But there's a chance to really interact with and have discussions with people who are like your literary heroes, whereas on social media, like I know even there's times even that if I tweet about Brian, his algorithm won't even show him my tweets, so I'm sure there are plenty of people that are tweeting to him that he just doesn't see them.
Yeah. If you want them to see it, and for whatever reason they're not seeing it on Twitter or Facebook, I guarantee if you post it on the message board, they're going to see it. Josh Mallerman says he already got a horror movie idea from the message board.
Oh, really?
Lombardo has already broken his section of the message board. It's chaos. I went in there to try to moderate it, and I backed out like, oh no.
But it does. I mean, for whatever status of the writer, we're all, everybody's got their own insecurities, and they think that nobody's reading their stuff, and it's they're writing into a void. And as readers, if you're not bothering them, post in their boards, post in their sections, tell them that you like their stuff, start a discussion on one of their works. You really could make their day.
Yeah,
seriously.
And yeah, that's all. If message boards aren't something you want to do, then I salute. That's okay. It's not for everybody, but it is for us. It's what feels right for us. It's a nice community that we're building there. So briankeene.com message board. And most of the other authors have linked to it on their own sites, their own social media. So you don't even technically need to go through briankeene.com. You can go to Paul Tremblay's social media, and he's got the link to his section right there. So, all right. Well, thank you all. We'll do this again next week. Mary, thank you for joining in.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. Now you got to go see what the cats are up to, and I'm going to go back to work.
Okay.
So, peace.